Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I'm going to be giving you my first look at an upcoming Tier 8 Premium Polish medium tank. It is the CS-52, and so if you saw my video from Monday of the preliminary statistics of the Tier 10 Polish medium tank and you got very excited about the CS-63, then I'm sure that you're going to be looking at this one as an opportunity to perhaps do some crew training for the upcoming Polish medium tank tech tree. If, for some reason, of course, you can't bring yourself to playing the Poodle. So, the CS-52. It does look a lot like a T-44. I like these side skirts along the side of the vehicle. This will give you some high explosive protection. And all in all, it does look like it's a fairly solid tank. It looks like it's got quite thick frontal armor. The turret does look very wide, very chunky. That's not a good thing frontally. Has a cupola on top of the vehicle as well. But all in all, I really like the aesthetic of this vehicle. Looks quite low profile. You're going to be able to hide it in some undulations, a lot like you can with your Soviet tanks. And any of you who have played the Polish heavy tanks will know just how good they are if they can get hull down. I guess the real excitement is going to come from just how high alpha damage this 105mm caliber main armament is able to achieve. And yeah, I'm not going to leave you hanging. I'm just going to have to let you know that the alpha damage on this gun is 320. Not bad for a vehicle that kind of looks a lot like a Soviet medium tank. It's definitely higher than you would get on the T-44-100 with that 250 alpha damage. So what else do we need to know? It's got exactly the same crew loadout that you would have on the CS-63, which is the name of the upcoming Tier 10 Polish tank that will be at the top of the new tech tree of Polish medium vehicles. And it's ammunition, AP, APCR, and high explosive. I've taken all of the other statistics of the CS-52 and I've put them into an Excel spreadsheet so we can see how the vehicle stacks up compared to, for example, the T-44-100. No surprises there. In addition to the Lansen, the Tier 8 Swedish premium medium tank, because I think the vehicles are fairly similar in stance. Okay, so the CS-52, 105mm main armament. The T-44-100 has a 100mm and the Lansen has 105. The alpha damage on the CS-52 at 320 is definitely better than the T-44-100 and comparable to the Lansen. So I'm already excited about the idea of hopefully having a low-profile tank that maybe has very decent armor with a higher amount of alpha damage on a medium tank. Of course, excited to play it, maybe not so happy to play against it with regards to balancing. So the penetration on this 105mm is identical to the Lansen at 208 on its standard rounds. This is just a touch above the T-44-100. This should definitely help you free-to-play players out there, although really for a medium tanks it's not the best in class. Far from it. Vehicles like the Lorraine have 232mm of penetration, and really I feel like 220 or 230 has kind of become the standard for Tier 8 premium tanks. Now you can get it on vehicles like the Renegade, now you can get vehicles like the Patriot. Is 208 really enough anymore when all of the other vehicles are packing more and frankly, tanks are getting more and more heavily armored as the duration of the game goes on. The premium rounds on this tank, though, do have a fairly healthy 252mm of penetration, a definite step up on the Lansen, and a touch above the T-44-100 as well. And those high explosive rounds with 53mm of penetration and 420 alpha damage should be very nice for dealing with those lightly armored tanks. So the rate of fire of the CS-52 is 5.71 rounds a minute. And once again, I'd like to clarify, as I said at the start of the video, or at least I hope I said at the start of the video, this is currently being super tested. And as Wargaming very much make it clear, characteristics are not final, so everything is subject to change. So if you think that the statistics look either completely underpowered or completely overpowered, well, there's hope for you because they could go either way. But yeah, the rate of fire of 5.71 rounds a minute, that is way below the Lansen, for example. The Lansen is packing nearly 2,100 damage per minute, while the CS-52 is down at 1,828, significantly below that of the T-44-100, although usually you think that vehicles with good alpha damage do have lower DPMs to try and balance them. But for some reason, the Lansen's just even above the T-44-100, probably because it has no armor. Let's see if we're going to go into that in the statistics later on. So the gun handling of the CS-52, pretty good news for such a large caliber gun. 0.36 accuracy is not bad, only 0.01 worse than the T-44-100. It is a little bit better than the Lansen as well, so this thing will be decent at all ranges. At close, you're going to be able to hit weak points. At decent distances, you're still going to be able to hit the larger weak points on the enemy tank, or maybe just be able to hit their hull armor if that's going to be enough. The aim time of 2.3 seconds is also really good for such a good caliber gun on a medium tank. Better than the Lancer, although worse than the smaller caliber of gun on the T-44-100. The depression, however, 6 degrees. Oh, I'm a little bit disappointed about that, I'm not going to lie. One of the things that I love about my Polish heavy tanks, especially vehicles like the 53 TP and also the 60 TP and the 53 TP, are that they, or the 50 TP, sorry, at tier 9. I said 53 TP twice. Is their gun depression. 8 degrees is absolutely phenomenal. I really love it. I love the fact that you're able to depress the gun and work ridge lines in your Polish tanks. So that's a little bit disappointing for me, especially considering the tier 10 Polish medium tank looks like it's currently got 8 degrees of gun depression. I was kind of hoping the premium tank was going to have the same. And I absolutely adore the Lancer's 10 degrees allows me to work the ridge line like a boss. And when I combine that with the great DPM and the great alpha damage that that tank has, it really does allow me to do some exceptional things. The CS-52, however, with 6 degrees, it's not a disaster, but it's definitely not desirable. The elevation at 17 degrees is worse than the other two tanks in this comparison, so you're not going to be able to engage opponents that are above you. But with 43 degrees a second of turret traverse, you're going to be able to re-engage opponents way faster than the Lancer can to the left or to the right. So now on to the mobility of the vehicle. 620 horsepower, not too shabby. For a weight of 36 tons, however, way heavier than the other two tanks in this comparison. That gives this a fairly poor power-to-weight ratio of 17. That's going to make this tank sluggish, a bit more like a T-54 Mod 1, or even something along the lines of like an Object 430U. It's definitely not going to be the fastest medium tank you've ever played at Tier 8, and it's definitely going to be a touch behind the other two vehicles that we are comparing it to. The top speed limit, however, at 50 is decent. 20 backwards is very good. It's not nearly as close as it's not nearly as good as the T-44-100 at 52 forwards and 23 backwards. One of the most awesome things about that tank is how quickly it can reverse and stop maybe some of the smaller medium tanks from being able to get its side and expose its weakened armor. The hull traverse of 40 degrees is the same as the Lancer, worse than the T-44-100. So all in all, this vehicle has the worst mobility in this comparison, has the middle road of the gun handling, and I'd say the worst firepower in this comparison as well, even given the caliber of the gun. So now onto the armor. Maybe this is where the CS-52 is going to be absolutely awesome. Well, not really. 80 millimeters of frontal hull armor, 75 at the side and 45 at the rear. It's definitely not awful. You're going to do well against your tier 6s, you're going to do well against your tier 7s, but against the 8s and the 9s and even the 10s, nobody's ever thinking that the T-44-100 has good hull armor, right? No, not at all. The T-44-100 has to use its mobility and its agility to be able to avoid shells, and then hopefully just be like well-rounded to avoid fighting tanks that could penetrate you in the first place and try and take advantage of their weaknesses. The CS-52, with regards to its turret armor as well at 190, well, that is very nice for a vehicle with 320 alpha damage. It definitely puts the Lancer to shame. Remember that you have to sacrifice all of the gun depression. You have to sacrifice a lot of all the mobility that the vehicle has. And you have to sacrifice a lot of the raw firepower with the rate of fire that the Lancer has as well to be able to get this armor advantage. The fact that the CS-52 is worse than the T-44-100's armor in every single way, and it has less hit points and the same view range at 380, kind of makes me feel a little underwhelmed about this tank so far, but everything is preliminary. Sure, alpha damage is awesome, and Wargaming should be careful about giving tanks which have good alpha damage, great statistics with regards to all of the other aspects of the vehicle. But I really feel that, at least for me personally, as somebody who would be willing to forego the armor to be able to gain that mobility, to be able to gain that gun depression, to be able to gain that damage per minute, I think the Lancer is probably the better all-round medium tank here. And as many of you will know who watched my tier list of premium tanks last year, the T-44-100 is still right up there. The T-44-100 is faster. The T-44-100 has the better DPM. It has the better gun depression. It has the better gun handling, way better mobility, and it even has the better armor. The only thing that the CS-52 is packing over the T-44-100 is 70 extra alpha damage, which is significant, and a little bit of penetration on its standard rounds. Well, actually, significant amount of penetration on its standard rounds, but a little bit on its premium rounds. So all in all, the CS-52. What do I think about it? Well, I think I've been a bit bamboozled, I'm not going to lie. When I looked at the screenshots of this vehicle, I thought, wow, maybe a pretty thick, strong turret, hopefully able to depress the gun at 8 degrees and some decent upper hull armor. It looks like the hull armor on this tank is incredibly thick, at least in my opinion from the side. I guess that is just the extent of the tank. That must be the 80mm and there's no plate underneath that. What's it attached to? I don't quite understand. Combine this with hopefully some spaced armor protection, which I was hoping was going to help the tank if you over-angle it, or maybe even if you're trying to side scrape and you overexpose your side armor. I was really hoping that this thing was going to be an absolute little monster, but not overpowered, but still have a role. For me, it feels like it's an all-rounder that the T-44-100 is currently just, I'd say, better than it in most regards. But then again, considering that currently the T-44-100 is currently packing an average win ratio of 52.63% on the European server, maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe the T-44-100 is just flat out overpowered, and Wargaming are doing the right thing by making sure that the statistics of the upcoming Polish vehicle is going to be just a little bit less than the T-44-100. Whether that's intentional, and if it is, hats off to you, Wargaming. That's how the game should be. Tech tree tanks should be just as powerful as premium vehicles. If not, the tech tree tank should be just a little bit more powerful, because the last thing that we want is for the game to be getting more pay to win. However, because of Wargaming's stance that they will never nerf premium tanks, even if they are overperforming inside the battles, they've kind of got themselves in a bit of a sticky situation here with the CS-52, in my opinion. The vehicle is incredibly similar to it. It differs only with regards to its alpha damage, and because the T-44-100 is clearly so strong, if they release it competing with that tank, there's a fine line between that and it just being a new overpowered premium tank that will go in and continue to ruin all tier 8 matchmaking and just make frontline insurmountable unless you are playing premium tanks. So all in all, the CS-52, it's not awful, but definitely not great. I'm going to keep an eye on the statistics of this vehicle as it comes to a gameplay perspective where I try to get my hands on it and see what it's all about. But still, even if the tank was to go in with the statistics that it has, I still think that it's going to be fairly strong, because how can you really go wrong with having 320 alpha damage and having 190mm of turret armor, as long as you're getting into nice matchups? I think that if it goes in how it is, it'll be very nice inside a good matchup, very much more matchup dependent than the T-44-100, but when you're having to deal with tier 9s and tier 10s, yeah, I'd definitely rather be in the Lansen personally. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you give the video a thumbs up. But if you absolutely hated it, then make sure you give the video a thumbs down as well. And let me know what you think about the CS-52 in the comments. Do you think the statistics about the vehicle look a bit too weak at the moment? Do you think they look too strong? And what do you think about my opinion of how this thing stacks up compared to the T-44-100? And do you think that maybe Wargaming are trying to put it in, maybe a little bit statistically weaker than it, because they're accepting that maybe the old premium tanks were a little bit overtuned? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.